This meeting is being recorded.
Great. So, luckily the day we're all home and I've got a little one sleeping in the room behind me is a day I won't be running this meeting. So I'll be quiet very shortly. But this is our monthly Southern Vermont new Vermonter Providers Network meeting. So thanks for those of you who are regular attendees to this meeting. But also what is unique this month is that we are also using this time to host the community consultation for the Ethiopian Community Development Council, which is a part of the federal refugee resettlement process. And I am happy and excited to turn it over to Tracy and or Joe to give an overview of what this meeting is, and then to kind of work through, the meeting. So thanks so much and welcome.
Hi, everyone. Joe, are you okay with me just kicking off an overview and then handing back over to you?
Please.
Yeah. Okay, great. Hi, everyone. My name is Tracy Dolan, and I am the director of the State Refugee Office. And that is an office within the state of Vermont, within the Agency of Human Services. And so this is a community consultation. Any organization like ECDC that welcomes refugee resettlement into a state is required to have 4 opportunities a year to be able to consult, share information with the community about what's going on with refugee resettlement, to get feedback, to share information. And so the way we do it in Vermont, we have a larger meeting every 2 months with refugee service providers statewide. It's a great meeting. We're able to give a lot of updates on big programs and learn a lot from each other. Sometimes we highlight a particular content area. For example, a couple of months ago, we had a couple of folks from schools talk about uniquely what they do in the schools around supporting refugee students. So we do those. And then in addition, some of the newer areas like Brattleboro, Bennington, we're going to have 2 of these in the year. So we'll take 2 of the larger state ones and apply that to our requirement to have 4 meetings, and then 2 smaller ones to get a little more focused. And we'll be doing the same in Rutland. So that's what a community consultation is, really that back and forth engagement. I think that ECDC and BDCC, there's a lot of partnerships and a lot of engagement already. So hopefully that builds upon this. I wanted to just take a moment to give you just a 5-minute overview, once again, on refugee resettlement, and mention a couple of new programs that you've probably just heard about that were just announced. So refugee resettlement in a nutshell, there's a U.S. refugee admissions program. And so when we talk about refugee resettlement, it's mostly folks coming through that program. The president every year sets out a number of refugees that the U.S. is looking to resettle. So in this current fiscal year, that number is 125,000. That's the goal. However, operationally, we're thinking nationwide, it's going to be closer to 65,000. And that's because a lot of systems overseas have taken a long time to gear back up, because refugee resettlement was really shrunk and reduced in the Trump administration as a goal. And so with Biden administration, now the goal is to ramp it up again. So we're probably looking operationally at close to 65,000. What happened last year here in Vermont, we had an existing organization, USCRI, which was based out of Colchester. And then we had a new organization that really just got active a little more than a year ago with ECDC. And all the work happening, of course, in communities around that. So we have 4 actual formal sites for refugee resettlement now in Vermont that are recognized by the State Department. And that is Colchester, Rutland, and Bennington and Brattleboro. Last year, we welcomed overall about 290 refugees, or 390. Sorry, I don't have that number in front of me. Overall, this year, each year, the refugee resettlement organizations actually put in a projection and work with the state, and they also work then with the State Department for approval. So this year, the goal or the capacity that was approved is about 425 overall. However, not sure that we'll meet that. A lot of things go into that, including things that are outside of our control, outside the state. And the places that we think folks will come from are Afghanistan, although coming in as refugees now, not as humanitarian parolees. A lot of you might know that a lot of the Afghans came in as humanitarian parolees, which is a different status than refugees. But for the purposes of the Afghans, they did receive most of the same kinds of services that refugees would get. Their legal status is different in that they are still having to pursue asylum, which is a much heavier lift than if you show up with refugee status. There's an easier path to citizenship. So this year we expect Afghans to arrive through as refugees, Syrians, Congolese, Sudanese, Iraqis. Those are 5 areas that we anticipate that folks will come from, although it could be different than that, but that's the overall trend for the US. A few other points. So normally in refugee resettlement, if we're looking at a federal fiscal year, which runs from October 1 through September 30th, refugee arrival tends to be slower in the first couple of quarters and picks up. So you might see a trickle, and then in the 3rd and 4th quarters or spring and summer, you might see it really pick up. And so that tends to be the flow of how it works. So right now in Vermont, we have refugees coming in, and I'm using refugees in a pretty broad sense there. So I'm including the humanitarian parolees, for example. We have them coming in primarily through this U.S. refugee admissions program where they're assigned to either ECDC or USCRI for the most part. However, we do have, as of last year, some new programs. One of them is the Ukrainian program, and that is a supporter program. You've probably heard it called a sponsorship program, but officially it's a supporter program. And in that program, run by the federal government, it doesn't go through the resettlement agencies. So it doesn't get assigned to the resettlement agencies. Individuals go onto a website, Uniting for Ukraine, and they sign up to be a sponsor of a named person or family in Ukraine. And then they're matched, and that family ultimately comes over. And that's an individual to individual or family to family connection, but it's about one household really sponsoring and saying that I will support this family coming over. And when you apply, you indicate that you can support them in some basic ways for up to 2 years. Now, once the Ukrainian family arrives here, they can register with the resettlement agency and get some services because the resettlement agency has given some funding for that. Right now in Vermont, we have 135 applications for Ukrainians in Vermont. We're not sure how many are actually here, maybe about half that number. We don't have any real way of tracking that unless someone reaches out to us. The new program that was announced that will probably impact Vermont, just announced a couple of days ago, is a new private sponsorship program. It's about private sponsorship groups. So it might sound a little bit familiar to what you know as community sponsorship with ECDC. So in that program, it's a pilot program, but we're all pretty sure it will become a permanent program. In that program, individuals, up to 5 or more individuals, come together, raise funds, and then apply as a group to say, we would like to sponsor a refugee or a family. And then the US government, through this separate program, outside of the usual refugee resettlement program, the US government then assigns refugees to that family. For the first year, the goal is 10,000 across the country. So approving about 2,500 private sponsorship groups. We think it may be concentrated in a few states, but it's really open nationwide. And the private sponsor groups will be trained and they will have kind of the heavier lift early on. However, later, the refugees can apply and become a case of a resettlement agency like ECDC or USCRI, and then receive the refugee support services that other refugees would receive. So this is a brand new program, and they're going to be studying it closely. And there are some things that people like me, the Director of Refugee Services in Vermont, and others around the country have advised this program to do. For example, making sure that there's someone to really help manage that group of sponsors, because there's lots of questions, because they don't do it all the time, right? They do it for one family or one individual. Also making sure that there's a resource for folks to get their questions answered, and some other important points that we thought were important. And then finally, there's a program that you won't hear about too much here, but you've probably heard about it nationally. And that is a supporter program as well for Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans. So again, the idea there is that somebody in the US has a connection to a Cuban, Haitian, Nicaraguan, or Venezuelan, and can actually bring people in through this supporter. So those folks are not going to be able to just show up at the border for the most part anymore. They're going to have to be pre-assigned to a family that knows them or has some connection or has some connection to the name. So those are some of the brand new programs that are running. That last program will have probably fewer numbers in Vermont, but we anticipate the Ukrainian program will continue to run. And so we'll continue to see a slow, steady uptick there. And we anticipate that this private sponsorship group program, while very small at first, will eventually pick up. And we anticipate that that will be a permanent program. So there will be a variety of pathways, most of which do intersect with the Refugee Resettlement Agency in some way. But today's consultation is about our current system, but I did want to let you know that if you're hearing announcements, that's what's going on. That private sponsorship group program, the new program, I will send information to Alex and Joe and ask them to send it out to you. There is an informational webinar about that tomorrow, a national one that you might want to get on. I will also send information more broadly out about that one for people's information. And I think that's where we are. And thank you so much. And I can pause for a few questions if that's helpful right now. And if you have questions, I don't know if I see them.
I have a question, if that's okay.
Yes.
I understand that this year our goal is around 425 new refugees. Can you give me an idea of how many of those will go to each of the 4 sites?
Sure. I'm going to pause and hold that for Joe, and he's got the breakdown for the Bennington Brattleboro area. But for USCRI, I believe it's about 280 for the Colchester-Chittenden area and about 40 or so for the Rutland area. I don't have those numbers right in front of me, but it's that. And then Joe can speak to Brattleboro, Bennington.
Just a question in there for you, Tracy, if you know.
Yeah, right now they cannot choose someone to sponsor. So this will not assist us right now with unification. What they're using this for right now is to actually address the backlog that they have of refugees who've already been approved as refugees. But at this time, you couldn't choose someone to sponsor. However, there is a new program that's assisting with reunification, and that has just kicked up its activity in the last 2 weeks. So I will share that information where people can start working with the reunification group that's working on that at the federal government. And I will share that program's information with Joe and with Alex, because that is something that anyone who's looking for reunification should be registering with now.
Okay, I think I don't see any question down for you, Tracy, so I will begin. Alice, if you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen. Alice is saying that host disable attendance screen sharing. Can you enable me?
Yep, let me see. All right, give it one more shot.
Okay, here we go.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Yep, looks good.
All right, great.
Yes.
So good morning, everyone, and I want to thank you for coming, especially on this winter day. So as Tracy mentioned, every 3 months we hold a community consultation, and the purpose of this is to provide you with year-to-year arrivals and projections, and to provide you with the characteristics of arriving refugees population in our area, including the average family size and composition, the language, and the education background, and other factors, and to also highlight our region's progress and challenges. So my presentation was structured this way. I will give you ECDC overview and our timeline. I'll also talk about our reflections on 2022 arrivals and the characteristics I just talked about, the services we provide here at ECDC, update on how refugee population vary in our 2 counties, the challenges in our region, how my ECDC and partners collaborate to address these challenges. Then I'll move on to the FY23 arrival projections for both counties, regions where refugees may be coming from, areas where refugees may be resettled, and an update on the ECDC Multicultural Community Center that is on Best Street. If time permits, then we can go to questions and answers. So for overview, as you may all know, or some of you may know, ECDC is one of the 9 resettlement agencies accredited by the Department of State to resettle refugees across the country. Our network of local resettlement sites is made up of a combination of 6 ECDC branch offices. So Vermont is one of the branch offices, and we have affiliate organizations across the country. Our mission is to resettle and assist refugees and immigrants to lead a life of dignity, attain self-sufficiency, and integrate successfully in their new communities across the country. For our timeline, we opened our office in Brattleboro in October of 2021, and we officially open the Bennington office next month. It's going to be a low-key event since we have been operating in Bennington since January of 2022. Bennington office will be supported by Brattleboro office and ECDC headquarters. And Megan Winslow has been and will continue to be our lead person in Bennington. For now, we primarily operate in Windham and Bennington counties, and most of our refugees are resettled in the 2 counties. However, through the Ukraine program, we are covering Windham, Bennington, Windsor, and Orange counties. Reflecting on our FY22, the Afghan Assistance Program, and I will keep using the acronym APA, refer to the Afghan program that last 2022 that brought in most of our refugees. And between January and November of 2022, we resettled 90 individuals through the APA program. But that program has ended, so then we move on to what we call a reception and placement program. And I will keep using the acronym RMP for this program. And this is a regular resettlement program that refugees come through. We resettled 22 individuals within the same period. So between APA and RMP for the period, we reintegrated 112 individuals. However, 9 individuals out-migrated to other states. Of the 103 individuals that are still residing in Vermont, especially Southern Vermont, 33 individuals are in Bennington and 70 individuals in Brattleboro and its surroundings. 101 individuals are permanently housed. And this is a very big achievement because when we started, one of the concerns and fear was, where are we going to put everyone? But credit to all of us, you are our partners in the community. We now have 101 individuals who are permanently housed. We still have 2 single people who are still temporarily housed at the SIT campus. One person is moving out next week, leaving us with 1 individual. However, this will change based on new arrivals. Changes in the rental assistance program continue to affect singles and families who are not in the REACH-UP program. Through the state and Tracy's office, we receive some support and we will be providing limited one-time rental assistance to refugees. But this one-time rental assistance determination is based on case by case. New arrivals for now will continue to be temporarily housed at SIT until June of 2023, and we will update all of you when there are changes in that program. Composition of the 90 AP arrivals, 37 are couples, 22 are singles, and 31 are children. They are all Afghans. Of the 22 who arrived through the RMP program, 16 are Afghans, a family of 3 from Guatemala, and a family of 3 from the Democratic Republic of Congo. The family from Congo moved out to another state. So for now, our refugees are from Afghanistan and Guatemala. For family size, our regular family size is from single individual to family of 5 people. For education, a good number of refugees that have arrived came with college degree. And for professional background, we have heavy duty machines mechanic, civil engineer, helicopter pilot, former police officer, lawyers, accountants, teachers, those who are work for the United Nations, etc. So that's cross professional background of refugees that have arrived in our region. For language, we currently have those who speak Pashto, Dari, and Spanish. We anticipate to add French, Tigrayan, and Ukrainian. Our staff, we have Pashto, Dari, Spanish, and French speakers. We have an app that uses other languages, so we hope that that app will be able to help when languages that we do not have on our staff arrive. Now I'll move on to the kind of services or programs that we have. We have the program called the Preferred Communities PC program. We continue to provide services to clients that are enrolled into this program. And this program is an intensive case management program for families who are still struggling to integrate. Caitlin Ford will be our manager for this program. And I just want to emphasize this program is a selective program, and it has a strict criteria who gets into this program. So it's not open to everyone. Our health program, we have a dedicated staff supporting refugees navigate health access. Almost all the domestic health assessments have been completed except 4 to 5 individuals who need to complete their lab work. All arrivals have signed up for Medicaid and have assigned PCP, the primary care provider. At least each individual or family have visited their PCP. Access to dental care still remains a challenge for us, and we are seeing cases of dental need is on the rise. Thanks to United Way Dental Program, it has been really helping, but we also know that their funding is not able to cover the overall dental need. We continue to provide health awareness, and in collaboration with ACRS, we'll soon start organizing awareness on mental health at our center on Best Street. Employment, through partnership with Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation, BDCC, that we have closely been working with since we started. Refugees continue to receive employment and job retention support services. Of the 75 employable adults, 64 were employed, but 5 left the state, so 59 currently have full or part-time employment. For language support, the School for International Training and World Learning, the Vermont Adult Learning and Tutorial Center in Bennington continue to provide English language support to all arriving refugees. Classes take place at our community center on Best Street and at the Tutorial Center in Bennington. Arrangements are made to accommodate those who go to work and not able to fit into the regular schedule. For legal support, we continue to provide legal support services through our partner, the African Association Living in Vermont, AALV. For the 4 ECDC cases for adjustment of status, which means apply to USCIS to get a green card, 25 cases were submitted to USCIS. 18 had interviewed, 2 cases approved. 2 asylum cases still remain to be submitted. We also provide limited support to SIV cases and family reunification process for Afghans. Access to state benefits. Our case managers and volunteers continue to assist refugees to enroll and access state benefits. All arrivals signed up for food stamps and Medicaid. Those qualify for Reach Up are enrolled into the Reach Up program as well. For Ukrainian program, we are recruiting a case manager who will be responsible for outreach in Windham, Bennington, Windsor, and Orange counties. We don't have the president right now Women Empowerment Program. Next month, we will resume sewing classes for women at the community center. For higher education support, we are supporting 2 females that are studying to become healthcare professionals. This month, we will be starting a program that will assist with college enrollment. Community partnership, we continue working with community volunteers, including co-sponsorship groups. 3/4 of our arrivals were supported by co-sponsorship and support teams, which was one of the highest levels of community support among all ECDC local affiliates across the country. Giving refugees major steps towards self-sufficiency within the first year in Vermont, half of our 2022 families with co-sponsorship and support teams have completed the program. The other half are still working with volunteers groups and continue to work on basic self-sufficiency goals. So given the slower pace of arrivals in this year, we will be able to form new teams for new arrivals, combining both the new and old volunteers. As you may know, co-sponsorship teams generally work with families with 2 or more children. That's how we structure it. How refugees population faring in our 2 counties? All families currently have at least one member of the household with employment, although many are beginning to consider new opportunities, which is common in this kind of work. 4 individuals have enrolled in CCV courses to begin further education, and 1 individual has begun CDL. Besides the 2 singles still temporarily housed at the SIT, all families are permanently housed, so that's a really good news. Although with the imminent end of rental assistance and current wages, rent may not be sustainable for some families. All refugees have primary care providers and at least paid a visit to their PCP. 95% of Afghans seeking asylum have submitted their cases to USCIS, and waiting for a decision. Majority of refugees who have been here for over 6 months have either obtained a driver's license or bought a car. So they have been addressing the transportation needs. We also see improved conversational English amongst those who could not speak English when they came. There is slow cultural adjustment amongst some refugees, particularly married women, to enter the workforce. All refugees' children have enrolled into school. So that's the overall faring of refugees that have arrived. Challenges in our region, as we all know, housing, finding affordable and sustainable housing for new arrivals is a challenge. Our current contract with SIT, where we temporarily house refugees, will come to an end this June. So that's one of our concerns. Finding good and livable jobs based on refugee skills mentioned above, and diversifying our employers base is also still remains a challenge in our region. Language support, easy access to translation and interpretation services, not only for providers that are directly working with refugees, but other providers or employers who may need that one-time support is a challenge. We also see that some service providers are still unequipped right now to accommodate the language, literacy, and cultural needs of refugees. For immigration, we do not have enough immigration lawyers in our region to provide immigration support to refugees and asylum seekers. Right now, majority of our clients are supported by AALV, as I mentioned, but AALV is based in Burlington. And sometimes our staff or AALV will have to come here, or our staff will have to go to Burlington. And that is a challenge for us. The role of refugees resettlement agency. There is still a lack of understanding of the role we play or what typical resettlement work looks like amongst some community members and service providers. As a result, there is still an expectation that our aides, which is us, should do almost everything for refugees population. Sorry. Where am I? How might ECDC and partners collaborate to address challenges? we suggest a regular dialogue to streamline communication between all partners. It could be in person or it could be locally based, so that all parties understand their various roles in working to create a supportive community for New Americans. This could result in some helpful brainstorming of solutions to challenges. A good example is the meeting we're really having right now. We also think that maybe setting up or integrating into existing service providers network groups to share lessons, learn from each other, and address common challenges is another way to address some of these challenges. We ECDC coming up with a list of tasks clarifying our role to all partners and refugees population and making that list accessible. And we also welcome any innovative suggestions from our partners to address the challenges. So we'll move on to our FY23 arrival projections for our 2 counties. The APA program has ended. So for this year, all ECDC refugees are coming through the regular RNP program and non-emergency program like the APA. We still anticipate 100 refugees to arrive in Windham County, and for the same period, 50 refugees to arrive for Bennington County. And again, these are individuals, so they could be family of 4, family of 5, and reduce the number. We will have an office space hopefully this week in Bennington. We will be temporarily occupying a space at St. Peter's Episcopal Church on 200 Pleasant Street until we find a permanent space. In addition to current staff we have in Bennington, we have hired another staff this week and looking for 2 more staff. For Ukraine program, while we do not provide direct services for Ukrainians except when required, number of applications submitted from our region, which is the 4 counties we talked about, is still at 25. If the projected number arrives, we anticipate 25 more refugees in addition to the 150 for our region. As of now, we only made contact with 2 clients through the Ukraine program. Again, Mark Clark, whose email is below there, is still the contact for our Ukraine program. Where individuals may be coming from, we just don't know, honestly. Our assumption is that majority of the refugees will come from Afghanistan because of the existing community here. We also anticipate refugees coming from South America, maybe Guatemala, Africa, maybe Eritrea and Democratic Republic of Congo, and also Ukraine. We are currently expecting 13 refugees, 10 from Eritrea, 3 from Afghanistan between now and February this year, the end of February. Updates on our Multicultural Community Center. The center continues to be central meeting point for refugees, community members, and service providers. We continue to hold bi-weekly women's health sections there. There will be a driver's education in February with support from the Windham County Sheriff's Department. We also expect SEFCA will begin financial literacy courses in February. Topics will focus on how to create and maintain budget and the importance of establishing credit. We are in discussion with another partner to support areas that SEFCA may not cover, and we're looking at Bennington area. We continue to organize monthly recreational activities, recreational community outings from the center, for example, bowling night, ice skating parties through the Brattleboro REC department, movie night, etc. United Way will begin free tax preparation in February at the Center for All Refugees. There will be ACRS representative coming to the center to talk about the importance of mental health and available resources. Sewing classes for women will resume next month at the center. English language through world learning and Vermont adult learning continues at the center. And Vermont Department of Labor continues to use the Center for Employment Support. Announcement, we have 4 open positions, 2 case manager positions for Bennington, 1 UHP case manager, and 1 administrator position we're looking for. So please start spreading the word for us. Potential applicants can send their cover letters and resume to me. And thank you. I open it up for, if time permits, Alex, question or answers.
Yep, let me just bring everyone back here. We have plenty of time for questions, comments, for Joe, and I think Tracy also is still here. Yep, as needed. So I will monitor the chat. Just feel free to raise your hands. Sue Graff.
Hi, folks.
Hello.
I'm Sue Graff. I'm with the Agency of Human Services. I'm the field director for the Brattleboro and Springfield districts. And my colleague Adam Sansik is here, who covers Bennington and Rutland. And we appreciate all of this information. So we're really looking forward to getting the presentation so we can sort of digest all that. So thank you, Joe, and thanks for all the work that's being done in this space. I guess the things that come sort of to me as questions sort of consistently, I appreciate the role of the Multicultural Center and the fact that services and supports and programming is being provided there centrally, but I also wonder and worry and get some questions about and you highlighted this in your presentation, the ability of our systems to adequately work with the refugee population. So our designated agency, our state agencies, all that, and so I do want to dig in a little bit and just have us be thinking about how we can be better prepared and continue to work together so that people are met in the places that they are accessing as they continue to live here in a culturally competent way and with good, translation services and things like that. It feels like I am just curious about some of the plans for some of that work or what's being done in that space. And I also wonder a little bit about a lot of the questions I get are around, and you highlighted this a bit with maybe partners not understanding your role. I do feel like there's some confusion about what case management through ECDC looks like. And I understand that you have different staff doing different things, but I wonder about the integration of that case management support and how you operate internally, because I'm just not privy to that. Like, how do you understand internally with your staff what's going on for these individuals or families and how you communicate sort of internally? Because I do get some questions, that just come across my desk around that. So I understand that you have staff doing different things, but I just wonder about the integration of, does everybody know what's going on with these families sort of in a holistic way? Because there seems to be, in some cases, some disconnect around that, particularly in the health space. So just wondered if you could speak a little bit to that.
You mean among our staff or the broader community partners?
Amongst staff. So I guess my question is sort of, what does case management look like within ECDC? Like, how are you holding all of this work and all these different staff that have very specific jobs, but you have an individual or family that has multiple needs. So how are you coordinating internally around that support? Because the few things that have come across my desk are where some of that has broken down a little bit, or that a particular partner or someone is not aware of what's going on with a family. So I'm just curious what that looks like. Do you have case management software? Do you have regular meetings? Are you inviting partners to the table around particular cases? I'm curious about your case management structure.
Okay, so so a couple of things. This is what in the recommendation I talk about a regular dialogue, because I think forum like this may not be able to make those all of the clarification. But with our case managers, we have specific areas. So we have employment case management or navigation. We have preferred communities. We have case managers that just focus on the first 90 days when people arrive, which is the reception and placement. We have case manager or health navigator who focuses on health needs. And all of these different components integrate internally. But I think where the challenge is, and which we need to continue the dialogue and more community partners, is how do they understand these different roles within ECDC? So who do they call if they have a question? And I think we need to, from this meeting on, is one of the suggestions to continue to find a space to discuss and know the roles of ECDC case managers and ECDC case managers. Also know who are the community providers out there. Like for example, what is the role of Safeguard? What United Way is doing? What AHS case managers are doing? Oh, so on and so forth. So I suggest that continue dialogue and finding, and we can talk off this meeting, so we can talk more on detail of how we can, create that space so that our case managers and other partners can integrate more.
Thank you. This is a great opportunity for me to ask everyone who is here if you wouldn't mind putting your name and the organization or town you're from in the chat. If I had everyone register, less people would have shown up, but I would have had those names. So this is the easiest way to kind of capture who's here. Names, organizations, or towns in the chat. Thank you. I'll also take this opportunity for the folks interested in, working on that, really the integration of our refugee and immigrant support services with the existing infrastructure and systems we have in place here in Southern Vermont. This is what the new Vermonter Provider Network meetings are for. So if this is your first meeting or one of your first meetings as a part of this group, that is a focus at a higher level of how do we ensure that the resources we have available in a rural community are really accessible to everyone, most importantly, new arrivals. Any other questions? Amy, please. And then Dora, you're next.
I'll just piggyback a little on what Sue was saying. I think we are starting to do some really great work. I'm the supervisor for the Reach Out program in Brattleboro. We have met with ECDC staff once. We actually meet again this afternoon, and we do have Mark did put together for us to start with a list of roles and responsibilities that ECDC case managers hold, so that we could pair next to that what we also do, so that we are starting to line up what we do similarly, what we do differently, which may help us align our services a little bit better over time. It's a new endeavor. We've only met once before to get this started, and we're now going to meet again this afternoon and continue that work. So I think that's a really positive step. And I do welcome that same thing, just like from our agency's perspective. Joe, you guys are getting to know our case management structure. It's really great that we're starting to get to know yours too. And that once you have all those people working with one family, like you said, who is that point person for that family? Who's the team lead in your agency, so that we have that one connection to a family, even though they're working with 4 or 5 people over there. That could be a really great next step. But yeah, but we're plugging along, and we appreciate the collaboration. So thank you.
Thank you.
Great, Dora.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so my question is, I know that the first arrival or the beginning of the arrival was really like an emergency situation for everybody. So I'm wondering this time, before new arrival, what are we planning as people who are working the resettlement really program? And have we learned any challenges from volunteers, especially what have they really gone through that we need to fix before like new arrivals? Yeah. Thank you.
So I can speak of ECDC. So we, with our volunteers and the co-sponsorship groups, we have had multiple meetings. And there were challenges that we identify and continue working through those challenges. And just looking back on the lessons, just not wanting to repeat what the APA program brought. I also want to mention that the APA was an emergency program. So right now, regular refugees coming, we want to avoid, group of refugees arriving at the same time, but at the same time, continue communication between our partners, informing them of people who are coming. and how best we coordinate services. Thomas, are you on this line?
Yes, I am, Joe.
Can you say something about volunteers quickly?
Yeah, sure. So as Joe mentioned, actually starting since September, we've had a lot of evaluations and meetings with volunteers to think about how we better structure coordination and come up with new ways of working together that my colleague Ursula, who is also on this call, will be taking up as a co-sponsorship and volunteer manager. We're having more regular meetings, not just with each group of volunteers, but also trying to have the volunteers connect more together. So when they learn about different solutions, they can share them more directly, not just through us. We're also developing new resources, including a set of task guides that very clearly explain how volunteers support families and what are some good practices on those tasks. So as Joe's saying, just as ECDC can offer better explanations and work with all of you on explaining who does what, we're making sure that that information also goes to our volunteer groups.
And then, Joe, I'd be glad to just also jump in with some of the things that I think have been learned that I've observed in my role, watching you guys go through the first round. So a couple of big changes that I think were really important. The first time around, it was literally a brand new office with folks who hadn't done resettlement before, et cetera, a lot of people showing up. And so things like benefit enrollment were slow. That has changed now. That's a priority. And so as people arrive, the Medicaid enrollment happens very quickly. Signing up with Reach Up and connecting there, the EBT cards, all of that kind of really important early benefit information comes in early so that refugees have something in hand. They're less reliant on someone having to bring them something, for some of their basics. So I think that's a really important improvement that has occurred. And so I think that's some learning that has happened. And also just piggybacking on what they both said around the roles, both Thomas and Joe, just getting more and more clarity around roles, I think is helpful. And then on the health side, we've got more experience now doing the domestic health assessments, still obviously, relatively new in this region. So it's not perfectly smooth, but also more experience assigning people to primary care providers. The health systems are getting better systems for translation and interpretation. It was a little bit rocky because it wasn't getting used a lot. And now one of the bigger systems actually has taken on a new translation interpretation service that is better. So I think a lot of improvements there. And then, as time moves on, more improvements will come. But from the outside, I see a lot of improvements, especially as people first arrive and get their feet under them and get access to those first services.
Thank you. And then question?
All right. Any other questions or comments? As we're talking about system building, relationship building, I do, need to plug the variety of working groups that are part of the Working Communities Initiative here in Southern Vermont. This meeting, the New Vermonters Providers Network is one of them. We host meetings for ELL providers and as well as post-secondary education providers. You can find more information on that if you go to welcomingcommunitiesvt.com, and I'll put that in the chat. You can watch old meetings, find a bit more information. But in July of 2021, when the BDCC helped submit the application to the federal government to open an office, we certainly never could have imagined where we would be right now today. And I think after a pretty tumultuous year of the APA program, which wasn't how anyone planned for things to go, now is the time where we really can take a deep breath and look at how are we going to partner now that things have settled. What are all of our roles and responsibilities instead of all hands on deck all the time?
Right.
because I think that's not where we should be anymore. But what a remarkable thing we've been able to do as a community in just over a year. So I really appreciate folks coming and being a part of it. Joe, Tracy, any parting words for the community consultation?
I just, for ECDC, just want to continue to say thank you all for your support and collaboration and coordination. We, again, as Alex mentioned, just in 1 year, I keep looking back and say, look, if we look back in 1 year, it has been a journey, but we wouldn't have done it without all of you. And I must say thank you. We are learning. Our region is learning from the challenges from last year, and we're building on those challenges. And I have no doubt that we are getting stronger and stronger, and we will continue to be strong. So thank you. And this is quarterly, so we will come back, within 3 months, but the next one will be at the state level. And then after that, we might come to this group again. So thank you. And keep it going.
Yes, and thank you. I'm also just going to say thanks to everyone. Really, when you pull back and you think about what your whole region has done in the last year, I mean, helping people who have come from the most difficult situation possible. Normally, refugees are in a refugee camp type situation for many years before they arrive here. I mean, so the additional trauma of folks coming in so quickly from such a difficult situation, and then the whole region having to quickly get up to speed, not just how do we settle someone in a home, but the schools who hadn't done this really before much, the health system who had very little experience with it. Right now we're working with a mental health agency now that's going to quickly start getting on board and training folks, HCRS, poised to do that. So just all aspects of it, and landlords who hadn't worked with folks before, and then the business community. BDCC's done a great job really trying to cultivate that and work on that. So many people, and the ELL system, we didn't have an ELL system that was ready to absorb this level of work. And now we've got, Tutorial Center in Bennington, who went from, having just a pretty small volunteer sort of base, and now having to have a more substantive program for the purposes of, carrying this, and then also World Learning and their ELL work. So I'm not naming everybody, but really so much work and people staying, right? I mean, you've got a lot of people staying. In a lot of states, people out-migrate pretty quickly. And that's not a failure, by the way, out-migration. Often it's to get people closer to their families, and good for them. They should go where it makes sense for them. But you're a pretty small region. You have a pretty limited set of employers, pretty limited set of opportunities in housing, right? Given your size, yet people choosing to stay even when they did have opportunities to go to other states. Because they speak over and over. I mean, all refugees coming to Vermont speak over and over about how welcome they find it, even when they're frustrated, right? Sometimes, yeah, for sure, it is frustrating. But even despite all that, they say, but ultimately, wow, people are great and they're welcoming us. And I hear that over and over in your region, the co-sponsorship groups, but everyone else too, who's just been extraordinary. So I just want to thank you. It's been wonderful to witness and to walk next to. And I look forward to continuing to support ECDC, BDCC, EL, all the ELL providers and everyone else. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tracy. And thanks to all who attended. Again, if you have not yet put your name, organization, and town yet in the chat, feel free to do that as your last contributions to the meeting. And we will see folks who'd like to attend next month at our next month's new Vermonter Provider Network meeting. Thanks, everyone.